Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Many dealerships today don't realize how many potential customers don't visit them because of the perception that the dealership is more expensive than a local shop. RepairPal is the leading provider of auto repair and maintenance information for consumers. Their studies show that 73% of consumers list price perception as the reason they stop servicing at a dealership. And they believe dealers overcharge and they can't get a good upfront cost estimate. Today, we're going to hear from some RepairPal certified dealers, a respected retail service coach, and an author who teaches service advisors, shop owners, and dealerships how to communicate with customers and technicians. So everyone, if you would, please welcome our panel today. They are Sean Butler from Bristol Honda and Johnson City Acura. Sean, welcome. Holden Scott from Regal Nissan is with us today. Justin Legrand Logan from BMW of Fairfield. Mike Vogel, the fixed operations coach, is with us, and Coralie Zuif, the author of 5-Star Service Advisor, and we appreciate everybody being here today. So if I can, let's start the conversation, and Sean Butler, I'll come to you first. Let's talk a little bit about how important is price perception out there, and how much service would you guess is actually lost to it in the marketplace?
Well, Ted, a lot of it transcends no matter where you are in the country. Price perception, a lot of that, they go for that cheap initial visit. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, they're in there and then there's $300 worth of maintenance for a free tire rotation, right? So the perception is reality, though. Somebody advertises a $39 oil change. That's what they think they're getting. There's always something, the strings attached. So one of the things that we did was I reached out, and when I spoke with RepairPal, that was literally one of my first partners when we took over this dealership earlier in the year, was to get our name out there and get our SEO going, and to make sure that when somebody Googles, we were at the top of the page, because perception is reality and price is important. That way transparency matters, right? We're not hiding anything, and many times the dealer's actually cheaper. If you do a dare to compare comparison, we're actually cheaper than many of your little chain stores and everything on just a basic service of an oil change and a tire rotation.
And Sean, come back to what you just said for a moment. When a consumer Googles, for you to be able to come up at the top of the search rankings, that's a pretty important thing, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was one of the things that really caught my eye with RepairPal, by being RepairPal certified, and they have a lot of visitors to their website. So anything you can do to, in the digital times of expand your presence is a great help, especially in a place like ours that was really struggling, because we're 5 miles from anywhere. People got to want to come here. So we have to give them a reason to come here.
I love it. Holden Scott, you are just outside Atlanta there in Georgia. Talk to us about price perception from your perspective.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it comes down to, that perceived value and what people initially think as far as transparency and things like that on the dealer standpoint. I know the way we like to use RepairPal and the way I've been pushing my people to use it is when you're trying to go over that inspection and you kind of feel someone, you can always sense when someone's like, they just don't know about the price. Well, if you can easily show right then and there that you're the same price as down the street and things like that, that takes that away from the person. They feel good about it, and then they're more likely to go ahead and say, yeah, let's go ahead and do that work. Because a lot of times that initial no is they want to, ask a relative about it. They want to shop it. They want to, ask another shop. Well, you're kind of taking that out of it, because now if I've gone ahead and shown you that I'm the same price as somewhere down the street and you're already here, why wouldn't you go ahead and do it then at that point in that moment? So that's where I think it's really huge is you're able to be transparent with your customers. You're able to see, because like Sean said, when I first took over this job, that's one of the first things I did as a dare to compare. I was shocked that the dealers were at the bottom of my list and all the independents were higher up on that list on a lot of those services. But customers never really do that. They just have been taught and trained, whether that's from previous generations, whatever you want to call it. But it's the perception that we're living in that reality now. So the best way to overcome that is just this transparency and this tool, and just right there, then and there, just being able to show people that, hey, yeah, you can go shop it, but why? And then then you have the added value of, hey, I'm certified, you got certified master technicians here, you got the full support of the OEM and everything like that. So if you were to be able to present to customer like, hey, you can go to an aftermarket shop or you can go to a dealership with the same price, I would be shocked if someone would not choose a dealership over a independent shop. The only thing that they might choose that for is just because of that relationship, and that just comes back down to the customer relationship. So transparency is how you continue to build that. So that's why this tool is so important, in my opinion.
And hold on, I got to come back to that for a second. You are now the fixed ops director at Regal Nissan, but before that, you were a service advisor for some time, and you oversee a large number of service advisors today. As an advisor, did you encounter that price perception often from consumers out there?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember when I was an advisor, having people who enjoyed coming for the oil change because they got the inspection, they got the free wash. Our oil changes were priced competitively, but they were going elsewhere to go ahead and do those other, maintenance or those other services. They would come here for the oil change to find out what their car needed, and they drive down the street somewhere else to get those things done. So now this allows us to be that one-stop shop. So I know myself as an advisor, if someone says no to price, you can go right back to that tool and then show it. I've been encouraging my guys, any repair that's a substantial repair, go ahead and print it out for the customer, put it in there. That way, the whole time they're thinking of it. And I mean, in today's market right now, a lot of people don't have money to do the repair right now, but I want them to know, even if they don't do it right now, that there's no need to look anywhere else because you have all the data right there. And then they got the website so they can sit at home and do it themselves and see. Sometimes I'm sure people like to do that.
So, Justin, I have to ask you, these gentlemen, Sean Butler and Holden Scott, are on the East Coast. You're in California, and you've got the BMW consumer. How about price perception there?
Price perception is real everywhere, and no more so than BMW as well, especially as you get into older models or models that are out of warranty. I think the myth is still there that that's when it becomes astronomically expensive to maintain the vehicle. Being able to partner with RepairPal gives us that layer of transparency that we actually experience on the sales side. I consider RepairPal like a Kelley Blue Book or like a Carfax. It's that independent third-party partner that we can reference and say, hey, this isn't just our data, just our information, just our intuition or some numbers that are made up in the sky. This is actually backed by independent research. You can see this. They do a great job of partnering and finding the information so we don't have to make a million phone calls to independent shops. It's right there. Here's the average in this market. And not only we're fair and competitive, but we're actually right on the money. On the sales side of my dealership, we're a one price organization. And so we've utilized tools like Kelley Blue Book, Carfax, vAuto to present that independent third party data on the sales side. And now we have the opportunity to do so on the service side as well.
And Justin, that word transparency keeps coming up. How important is that right now with consumers in your marketplace from what you're seeing that's happening out in the real world?
It's huge. Transparency builds and establishes trust. And with all the volatility that we've had in the market with, stocks and climate and COVID and everything, people are looking for organizations that they can work with and establish relationships with. So being able to do things like, complimentary multi-point inspection, a video walk around from our technicians, all the different tools that we use for communication, whether it's text or phone calls, it continues to add that layer of trust with our customers. And, that's how we overcome a lot of the price perception is by building in that extra value.
Love it. And I believe you said you are a RepairPal certified retailer. Is that correct?
We are. Yep.
Let me come back. If I may, Justin, let me come back real quick. Sean and Holden, are you both also RepairPal certified?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we have been since April of this year. And then the other stores, the Acura and the Mazda store, just got certified last week. We're live now there. So.
And yeah, I've been certified since July. So pretty much when they called me, I pretty much made a decision right there. It was a no-brainer for me. So for sure.
Art, you're doing some good work. But before I come to you, Mike Vogel, you have worked with and led dealer organizations on both coasts, East Coast and West Coast. Mike, I do not remember a time in our industry when we were able to talk about transparency in not just in the dealership, but in fixed operations. That seems to be something new.
Yeah, and these three gentlemen that just spoke all bring up a lot of solid, valid points. The one thing I'd like to add to them, so I don't make this redundant, is I think the other key when it comes to pricing is consistency, and that's something that we miss straight across the board in a lot of service departments, is giving the customer that consistent visit. And that's especially true with pricing. If you're a service manager and you're moving the carrot around constantly to drive your bottom line, that's going to create a muddled picture to a customer. And anything that we can do to keep it, to use the same word, transparent, is a big deal. Customers understand it. They know. In many cases, I don't think it's on the maintenance side so much, but I think it's on the repair side where we in the industry tend to take advantage of the customers. And that's something that's got to change. And obviously, Holden, Sean, Justin are at the forefront of doing something like that. I'd like to see a lot more dealers following suit with that. And RepairPal comes into a place. I wish it would have been around, 30 years ago when I was leading stores. Because, I did my own dare to compare with local independents, but it was typically only on maintenance type stuff, just to make sure we were competitive on the maintenance, but it wasn't on repairs.
Mike, come back to that word consistency that you mentioned. RepairPal has pointed out how important price is as a perception with the consumer. How important would you say that consistency is for the consumer out there?
It's 100%. So I think some of the things we need to talk about is, the customer needs to trust the service advisor, and they have to see value in what they're presenting and even value in the price that they're presenting. But where does the advisor get that from? They need to get that from leadership. Service managers, fixed ops directors, they need to be leading their teams and making their team feel comfortable with the pricing structure that's set up, that it is competitive in the marketplace, that it does bring value to the customer. So if, that's really a leadership's job. So, and then doing it consistently, obviously, is a big deal. Just real quickly, one of the things that I did back in 2004 was I put together my maintenance packages at a very competitive rate. I was still making good gross profit, but I was competitive in my marketplace with the independents, the aftermarket, mass merchandisers. That was my price. I advertised that on my website. I advertised that in my direct mail marketing, email blast, whatever you want to talk about. So that if a customer called in or they drove into the drive or they talked to a BDC representative, they got the same price from everybody. Because when you start putting mixed messages, if you have your oil change is $39.95, but you got a $19.95 oil change, your strong advisors are going to quote the high price. Your weaker advisors are going to quote the low price. What kind of message are we sending to our customers when you can get two different prices quoted?
Yeah, Mike, that's so real world. Coralie, I'm coming over to you. You wrote the book, 5-Star Service Advisor, a great read. I'd recommend it to our audience. Coralie, thank you for doing that. You've been a service advisor, and Coralie, you work with service advisors, and you work with some of these shops that we're talking about today, including the mass merchandisers. What do you say in terms of price perception and working with local shops and dealers?
So I think predominantly there's three complaints that we hear from customers coming in, and one is definitely price perception. Not even that the price is necessarily higher, just that they're perceiving it to be higher. I was thinking of an example I came across a couple of weeks ago where a customer went into a dealership to have a scan or an update done on their vehicle, and they did a check. They had to look at their brakes, and their brakes were actually worn down to almost nothing, and check their wheel alignment as well. And when they gave the customer the information, she talked to her husband, and they just said, no, just don't have it done at the dealership, and for no particular reason. So this customer ended up coming into the shop I was at, not even that they worked on her vehicle per se, but her husband had a vehicle that had come in, and she was given estimates. And I looked at them, I thought, there's no way that these are going to be less than the dealership. And she just approved everything. So price perception is one thing. I don't know what the dealership quoted her, but there's, I don't think that they would be any less than the dealership. Another reason customers aren't going to the dealership, we hear, is location. Being a small town in Canada, the dealerships can tend to be half hour to an hour away, and customers don't want to put in that effort to go there. And then the third reason is service advisors not being able to explain repairs competently to a customer in a way that they would understand, so that they understand that value. So the customers are leaving the dealership for that person who's, served them some coffee and nice beverage, and they've washed the car, and they're going to the independents to talk to that, semi-grumpy technician whose strong suit isn't talking to people, but it's working on the cars. So those are the three reasons that we're seeing for customers not returning to dealerships.
And Coralie, may I say congratulations to you, because we all know on this panel that the woman is the decision maker in the great overwhelming majority of all of these purchase decisions. But you, as a woman teaching other service advisors, congratulations on doing that. And that says a whole lot for our industry.
Thank you. I'd say there's no secret to talking to men and women differently, because I encountered men who don't have automotive knowledge either. It's explaining the facts in a way somebody would understand and educating them about their vehicle.
Art Shaw, this is an amazing panel of leaders and teachers that you've assembled for us today. And Art, you've talked to us in the past, as have your panels, on the importance of the female consumer, and all the things I'm hearing here today. Art, what would you have to say?
Yeah, so you're hearing real world experience. Our data validates that. We did the research twice. 73% of people rate price the number one reason that they don't go to the dealer. And one thing we haven't talked about is the average age of a car on the road. If the average age of a car on the road is now, 10,
wait a second, I know the answer.
Go.
12 years.
Yes, it's actually even a little over 12. But think about it. By that time, about 20% of people end up still servicing their car, as Mike said, for repairs, right? So think about that. We're in a business where people, for the main reason is price, they're leaving in the main time that they own the car, which is when all the repairs start coming. And, I had lunch with a dealer owner yesterday talking about this. He's like, yeah, it's just commonly understood that consumers think dealers are expensive, that they're going to stop servicing at the dealer. Why? So I've talked to many folks, including people on this panel today, who have used Dare to Compare boards, who are trying to communicate with consumers to say, I'm fair. And guess what? It doesn't have to be cheap. Consumers understand the concept of value and quality. Quality is the number one buying factor in repair, not in maintenance. Again, Mike did a nice job. We can talk about that more, about understanding repair, which is where a lot of the lack of transparency exists, because you can get a coupon for an oil change and what's going in your car when the oil's going in. But with repair, you're kind of scared, and it's a big number, right? And so if that's the main reason, people understand that the dealer is, has a lot of qualities of high, value to a consumer, but they're scared. Then let's address that. Let's address that head on. We can change that perception collectively. And transparency is key. As Justin said, it exists and comparison exists in the sales side. So why can't service, which is the bulk of the profits, actually adopt the same mentality, which is we don't have to be cheapest, we don't have to be lowest. Consumers value us for what they know about us. They're just really worried. And there's enough data out there that perception is reality for consumers. And so we stand for high quality and fair pricing, not low pricing, so that we can change that perception for the dealers who are attentive, because consumers don't buy into Dare to Compare boards when you put the data up yourself.
Yeah. It's a trusted third-party source. Justin, Art just mentioned the average age of the vehicle, or I think I stepped in and answered it.
You got it, Ted.
You know how I know that, Justin? Because last month at the Roaring Twenties Fixed Ops Roundtable, Art asked that question, and I didn't know the answer, but now I know it's 12 years. Justin, average age of 12 years. How about BMW customers? Are there older units that you get that come in? Because I know they come today with that 3-year coverage. Do you get those older units in for repair as well?
You know, that's one of our main initiatives, is working to conquest those owners back into the dealership. You know, they're leaving or they have left and they've gone to independence. And so we're working pretty feverishly to get those customers back in by doing things around price perception, also value, adding in the layers of convenience that we offer. Coralie mentioned, you know, customers that live in a certain area, they pass multiple independent shops on the way to a dealership. So by building that awareness that we pick up and drop off in a variety of different things, that's how we're working to conquest and bring that business back into the dealership for us.
Wow. Sean Butler, you're in a smaller, relatively speaking, community. You've got several franchises there. You've got Honda, you mentioned Acura, Mazda. How about on the Acura side? Repairs, do you get older vehicles as well there?
Yes, sir. We have probably, we have people that come from as far away as 2 hours away, because Acura dealerships are few and far between. They're like 70 to 100 miles in between Acura dealerships. So, it's about value and convenience. When the perceived value it overcomes their objections, then the pricing in a lot of cases becomes irrelevant, right? But it's about that compassionate and taking the time to explain it properly and use terms that people can understand. If you find a way to personalize the customer experience, and then you're saying, hey, I understand. Let's go take a look, right? Transparency matters. I have no problem walking people into the shop and letting the technician explain it, or using the videos, using all the tools at hand to overcome what we can. We have to beat that perception, because many times it allows us to charge a higher price or get paid more when the customer is comfortable with us and we deliver a consistent quality experience and product. Then why would they go anywhere else? And then you have RepairPal. You're like, oh, you think Joe's going to be cheaper? Well, let's pull it up. And and there you are. It gives you the range. And RepairPal is very thorough, right, in their research of your area when they do their pricing. So if it says a 2015 Pilot water pump is going to be $788 to $915, you can bet we fit within that zone.
Sean, Kathleen Long, who is the CRO at RepairPal, told me recently that there are a lot of sources for consumer information out there, but they vary, and they're not all as reliable as the others. RepairPal is one of the most, if not the most reliable one. Sean Butler, you've mentioned to me you've got 4 service advisors, I think, in the Honda store, 4 in the Acura, Mazda Drive. What brought you to RepairPal? Was it this transparency? Was it the consistency that Mike Vogel talks about? What drew you to RepairPal?
Well, it was really overcoming the perception that dealers are higher. And like I said, because of the fact that we're kind of remote, right? Even though this area has over 500,000 people in it, they're spread out. It's a large, UIO area for the brands. So therefore, you got to give them a reason to pass by the 10 other independents they're going to pass on the way to your dealership. And what better way to do that through full transparency? The advisors are able to keep the tab up from the widget of our website right there on their computer, and they can show the customer, hey, this is what it is. If there's a question about pricing, click, 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 and boom. It's super, super easy. We got the signage up. Hey, feel free to visit. The customers can do their own dare to compare. We don't have to do it for them.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. Holden Scott, in the Atlanta metro market, what drew you? What were the advantages to having RepairPal and being certified by them?
So, one of the advantages, obviously, stuff like Justin and Sean already talked about. I was using a similar product from another provider, similar as in it was supposed to be doing the same type of thing. I had actually just gotten off that product because I just didn't see the value. I'm someone, I'll try something for 3 months. And if I don't think I'm seeing anything, I'll get off of it. So I'd actually just gotten off of it. But RepairPal obviously blew me away with what all they're doing as far as the search words, all these things we've already talked about, but also it's the people, the team there. It's one of the best vendors I work with. I work with quite a few vendors, but I will say every month, I got a call with Danny. I've had visits from Ryan and Deanna. So I've seen this team multiple times, and that's to me one of the biggest difference, because what I look for in my vendors is people who are going to partner with me to grow my business, and realize that if they help me grow my business, they're growing their business as well. So I can't say, obviously the program, everything works flawlessly, but when you have the personnel behind it that are helping, coaching your advisors, they came in person, did some coaching with my advisors while they were in the area. And then they just care. They're just caring people. We just adopted twins. Me and my wife did. Deanna sent me a card with a gift card. No other vendor did anything. I'm not saying that's the end of the world. That meant something to me. And that shows me that these people care. So they care about their product, but they also care about the dealer. So that's, at the end of the day, that's why I'm part of the reason why I'm with them, but that's why I'm going to continue to be with them, because the results are there as far as dollar and cents. It makes sense. But then just being that partner, that just means something to me. So definitely RepairPal.
Ted, I wanted to add something real quick to that. So I believe I was on the phone with Deanna and Ryan when they were stuck in traffic after visiting Holden recently. We had a funny conversation, but I did want to say that I had to give it a little time, right? Because I'm learning on the digital. I came from the Toyota world where you need to slow it down. I'm not used to trying to attract customers. And so after 2 or 3 months, all of a sudden, here we go. I'm starting to get the reporting. Oh, this is your calls from RepairPal. These are your calls that came in. Well, so I was a little skeptical at first, but I gave it the whole 90 days, and finally here in month 4, we're really starting to get some good traction with it. So I learned a lesson on that, to be patient too.
I love it. Justin, if you would summarize, what led you to RepairPal?
So we're an open point. We just opened last year in July of 2021. And so I wanted to find a partner, as Holden just mentioned, that was going to be a part of our growth, as well as a partner that's going to be part of our transparency and establishing trust in the market. Being a new dealership, we're not only conquesting from independent shops, but we're actually conquesting from other BMW dealerships outside of our market. And so we really had a big job of, getting clients here in the first place, and then making sure that they understood that we were going to do business a little differently than others in the market by being able to offer that transparency and saying, yes, this is our pricing. But just as Holden mentioned, hey, here's a website that's an independent third-party source. And you can see in terms of comparison in the market, we're right on the money. And I think that's helped a lot in terms of our growth over the last 15 months now.
I love it, Justin. Thank you. Coralie, I see this as really good for the consumer to have all of these tools out there. It's good for everybody. It's good for the shops. It's good for the dealers. But ultimately, the guest who's having their work performed.
Yeah, for sure. To have a tool to be able to compare prices is definitely a good thing to have. And I was going to say too, for the service advisors, and when you're talking with them with these big dollar amounts when it comes to repairs, to finding out the service advisor where they feel what's expensive or not, and working through that. Because if the advisor feels that $1,500 is a lot for a repair, they're already feeling how expensive it is, and that transfers to the customer as well.
That's a great point. Tully Williams, who many, if not everyone knows from the fixed operations world, says that, when it comes to things, any kind of maintenance or repairs, as an example, tires, if the advisor doesn't believe in tires, they're not going to sell a lot of tires. So Coralie, I would agree that if price perception is a hang up in the advisor's head as well, that's going to be a hang up in the real world with the consumer as well.
Yes, if they feel it's expensive or they're more expensive than the independents, then that's what's going to come across.
Mike, it's refreshing to see all of these leaders on the panel today talking about things like you mentioned, the consistency, the transparency, the tools out there. Mike, sum it up and bring it home if you would.
Sure. Well, I look at RepairPal as it could be a major advocate for the dealership, or it could be a thorn in the side for those that choose not to ignore the price perception problem. And what I mean by that is it's still going on today, which I'm amazed, decades later, but dealer principals and GMs go to group meetings, and they're talking about effective labor rate, where should it be, where should the gross profit percentage be, and so on. And so if you're driving your price structure strictly on numbers and not about what the experience is for the customer, and also where are you in the marketplace, you're going to create a world of hurt for yourself, because you're never going to get that price perception overcome. Now, on the flip side, if you choose to use the data that RepairPal gives you and making yourself competitive in the marketplace, as we've all talked about during this panel discussion, don't have to be the cheapest, certainly don't want to be the most expensive, but you want to be in a fair realm. That's what it's all about, because we want to close as much work as we can. And I don't necessarily like the word close, but when you look at multi-point inspections, the closing percentages are anywhere between 20% on the low end to 40% on the high end. It's not a great job that we're doing. And a lot of that is we haven't earned the trust, and we haven't shown the value in what's being presented to them. And that's where having that pricing structured in a way that it's fair for the customer, but it's also fair for the dealership. That's a win-win for everybody. So at the end of the day, that's how you're going to become more successful long term.
And Mike, you mentioned it a couple times today, that word trust as well, how strong that is in our industry. Art Shaw, RepairPal, I'm going to give you the last word today.
Look, I don't need the last word. You're hearing it from people who are beginning to change the way things are seen. Dealers have a great offering. If they're attentive to fair pricing, consumers need to know. And we're here to help in that journey. And these great leaders are going to help change this industry. And Ted, thanks for providing the forum upon which we can, share that with others.
Well, Art, I think you and these leaders are leading a fixed ops revolution. What do you say?
I think that's great, Ted. I love those words.
I think we go with that, Art. So, Art, thank you on behalf of Fix. Thank you, Art, for all that you and the team at RepairPal are doing, and wonderful work. And thank you so much. I want to thank the panel today: Sean Butler, Holden Scott, Justin Legrand Logan, Mike Vogel, the fixed ops coach, and Coralie Zoof. Thank you so much today. So appreciate that. And Art, I want to thank RepairPal for all you do for the industry. This is the RepairPal Price Perception Panel here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.